Would you rather have $1 million guaranteed or a 50/50th chance at having $1 billion? Why? Story 1, $1 million guaranteed would legitimately solve all my problems. I just need my debt wiped away, and the wage I make would allow us to live way comfortable. I don't need $1 billion as nice as it would be. I just want to be debt-free and have a house. Tired of renting. Story 2 and 50/50th shot at $1 billion. Wouldn't even hesitate to go for that coin flip. $1 million would be awesome. Don't get me wrong. It would be life-changing, insofar as I could have a comfortable safety net and a better retirement nest egg. But it's still not enough that I'd never have to work again. Whereas $1 billion is generational wealth. I'd never have to work again, nor would a large contingent of family and friends. The difference between $1 million and $1 billion is 99.9% of $1 billion. Put it this way. To me, $1 million is maybe a decade's worth of comfortable middle-class net earnings. $1 billion is 10,000 years worth. Put it another way. Would you want $1 or a 50/50th chance for $1,000? I'd take the latter every time. $1,000 or a 50/50th chance at $1 million? Absolutely still the latter. $10 million or $10 billion, that's getting to be the threshold that is interesting. $10 million I could retire very, very comfortably on. Story 3. 50/50th. $1 million would be life-changing, but not radically so. I could certainly retire earlier than expected. $1 billion would impact entire generations of my family and allow me to easily provide for my kids and their kids in a much more positive way. Story 4. If going purely by expected value, the bill is the correct answer. Going by odds of receiving life-changing money with no regards to how much your life changes, the mill. If you happen to be in the 1% where a mill truly don't make a difference, you can lose the coin toss and won't cry about the sure mill, then it's the bill. I think this covers it. Story 5. No doubt about it. $1 million. I know for sure I'll have that. I'm not going to gamble on the maybe I'll get $1 billion because there are only two options. Either I get lucky and I get $1 billion. I can brag about having $1 billion instead of $1 million, and I'll keep telling myself, boy, am I glad I took the 50/50th gamble, or I lose. I don't get the $1 billion, and I'll keep hating myself for the rest of my life and telling myself, you bad, you should have taken the $1 million. Story 6. It might be instructive if you divide by $1,000. Would you rather have $1,000 guaranteed or a 50/50th chance at having $1 million? In the first case, people who really, really need $1,000 will take it. Those who have problems or aspirations too big for $1,000 to scratch will go for the 50/50ths on $1 million. Divide by $1,000 again. Would you rather have $1 guaranteed or a 50/50th chance at having $1,000? Almost none of us would accept the $1 over the chance at $1,000. Now put the original numbers back in. If you took the sure thing, then it's likely you're at least a little financially insecure. $1 million would solve all your bigger problems and set you up for a good life. If you took the chance, you either have really big problems, or, more likely, you don't really need the money and it's worth taking a chance to score big. Story 7. People seriously underestimate what $1 million and some sound financial planning can accomplish. 50% chance of lifelong regret or 100% chance of coasting through life in peace. Story 8. The difference between $1 million and $1 billion is about $1 billion. I'd go for it. Expected value of $500 million? If I was in a more precarious financial situation, I'd want the guaranteed money, but there's such an immense difference between the two, and I'm not about to starve if I get unlucky. Story 9. Well, if I could sell that 50/50th to a consortium willing to invest in the possibility of $1 billion payout, that's damn good odds for investors with millions available to gamble with, then I would take the 50/50th odds and sell it off. Otherwise, I'll take the million. Story 10. 100% take $1 million. With $1 million, I can retire tomorrow, make some investments, and live modestly till the end of my life, maybe doing part-time gigs with the things I live, miniature painting or game dev. Why would I risk being able to retire tomorrow for a 50% chance to have more money a person could ever dream of? Story 11. The way someone answers probably tells you a lot about where they are. $1 million wouldn't change my life significantly, except to move up my retirement date a few years. I'd still go to work, maybe not Monday, but shortly. But $1 billion? I wouldn't even bother to give my notice, and I'd burn my SIM card so clients couldn't pester me. Give me the coin toss. Story 12. $1 million would last my lifetime living comfortably. I'd never have to work again and wouldn't need any more. Edit. I'm tired of repeatedly explaining my spending habits to strangers on the internet. So if you reply to this or any of my other comments in this thread and try to argue with me about my lifestyle in this hypothetical scenario, I'm blocking you. Story 13 million. Sorts out my life pretty well. It covers a house outright and all debt. No one's coming after me or my family for $1 million that's gone in a few months. $1 billion? Well, shit. My entire life changed. Granted, retirement at 36 would be cool, but my kids wouldn't live a normal life, nor would their kids down the road. Gotta worry about kidnapping, hiding your wealth, etc. I figure you'd be more likely to be a lottery statistic of bankruptcy and whatnot. Story 14. While $1 million is life-changing money, can buy a nice house in a MCL area and never have rent mortgage again, in a HCL area, it might get you a nice condo. It's not, I'll never need to work again money. If I'm going to have to keep working, I'm going to progress through my career anyway, and I'll earn $1 million in a few short years. In fact, in a few years from right now, I'll have gained the experience to check every box to qualify for individual contributor jobs, aka no people management, that pay upwards of $250K/year. I'd literally be making $1 million every 4 years, and that's if I stop there and don't become a manager or director or something. Meanwhile, I'll never make $1 billion no matter what I do. Give me the coin flip. Story 15 and 50/50ths any day. And anyone who thinks otherwise is way overvaluing $1 $1 million will get you out of a bad financial position and give you a very modest annual financial boost. $40K/wire inflation adjusted each year if invested. But it's not enough to fully support you. $1 billion is enough to support multiple generations. Even you had 4 kids, and they each of them had 4 kids. All 20 of them would still collect $2 million per year on investment returns alone, never touching principal. Story 16. I would take the 50-50 chance for $1 billion. The way I see it is, if I take the $1 million, I will always wonder what could have been and maybe regret. If I take the chance and I lose, I will just remind myself that if I could do it all over again, I'd still pick the same chance, so I really did nothing wrong. Luck just wasn't on my side and make peace with it. I could potentially make $1 million IRL, but $1 billion is next level. 50-50 chance for living your dream life is worth it. Story 17, $1 million now. Because I'm 50 plus disabled, cancer survivor, down to my last $5K in bills to pay off, on fixed income so that $5K is going to take forever, and $1 million might set me for what little time I have left. It would also let me adopt a kitten so I'm not alone for possible next 15-ish years. So yeah, $1 million now. Story 18, guaranteed million. $1 billion is way more money than any one person needs, and I do firmly believe that more money equals more problems. That doesn't apply to having money to have good quality of life, but if I have an excessive amount of money, I'm just going to buy up things in the hopes that things will make me happy. Also, there are so many stories of how people's true colors are shown when they find out someone has money and realize there's a chance they could get some too. Story 19 and 50/50ths. I'm more likely to make $1 million by myself within my lifetime than if I were to make $1 billion. And also, because even though $1 million is a lot of money, it's not enough to drastically improve things in a substantial way. I've seen fire groups, and $1 million will only sustain me if I live affordably below my means for the rest of my life. Investments might make that millions grow, but not to $1 billion. Story 20, I'd take the $1 million. I'm already financially secure, so the $1 million would be pure gravy. $1 billion would be life-changing in a bad way, and nothing would be, well, nothing. $1 billion would allow me to give away huge amounts to my friends who are not financially secure, I suppose. So would $1 million on a smaller scale. Story 21. The $1 million easily. I'd still have to work for many years, but I could pay off all my debts and invest extra money for future financial stability. You could give me the $1 million, and even tell me if I would have got the $1 billion, and I would be fine if I would have and got the $1 million instead. Anyone saying $1 million isn't life-changing is blinded by the $1 billion. Story 22. $1 million. It would completely solve all debt, including my mortgage, with still like $700K left over. Could invest that in a bunch of different ways, all of which would give me financial stability for life. Better that than gamble on staying in my current situation or having financial stability for life. Story 23. Not sure I'd even want $1 billion, honestly. Yeah, I could give it away, but that's a job in and of itself. And I don't know what the repercussions might be if, for example, I have several younger family members millions of dollars. But if I gave them less than that, there's probably a lot of resentment. Just sounds like a mess, honestly. Story 24, consider this. 1 million seconds is only 11.6 days. 1 billion seconds is 31.7 years. The 50% chance to have $1 billion rather than a surety of $1 million just has to be attempted. Sure, I might live to regret it, but I might also be truly living a life that is so far out of reach that it might as well be a fairy tale. Story 25. Wow, great question. I would take the $1 million. It would greatly enhance my life, and the thought of risking it and not getting anything would probably drive me crazy. With $1 million, you can be comfortable. With $1 billion, you're going to need security. People will constantly be asking you for money. Story 26. I would flip a coin. If I call it right, take the million since I have obviously used up my good luck. If I call it wrong, then gambler's fallacy tells me I have to get it right next time, and I go for the billion. On a semi-serious note, I would take the billion flip because $1 million would definitely make my life cushy since I'm already doing fairly well. But $1 billion, I could actually fundamentally change certain things in my country just by bribing lobbying politicians. Story 27. The million, easily. I hate to have to work, but you know what I hate more? Having to work with tons of debt hanging over my head like some Damoclean sword. It'd be better to have the billion, but it'd be worse to lose and be where I am when I knew there was a way out. If I took the mill, then maybe I'd actually have my first decent night's sleep in a decade. Story 28. This is easy. The $1 mill is effectively set me up for life-type money, and it's a guarantee. Sure, $1 billion is set my great-grandkids up for life-type money, but as long as I approach that $1 mill smartly, then it will give my kid a head start as well. Compound interest is a powerful thing. Story 29. This question is bad. Billion-dollar questions are always bad. Like, I get it. $1 million guaranteed to improve your life by a lot, or $1 billion to improve your life by a lot and some more, or no change. But it's not that if you have any interest in utility. $1 billion to me is $10 million to me, millions to my friends and family, and a forever scholarship program off of interest. It would be criminally selfish to take the million over the expected value of $500 million. Story $31 million wasn't a lot of money 20 years ago. It really isn't a lot of money right now. But with $1 million, I could easily wipe out all my debt, which would take a tiny fraction of that, and use the rest shore myself up pretty strongly for the rest of my life. I'd still need to work, sure. $1 million wouldn't get me over the finish line, but working on your terms is a whole lot different than working on someone else's. They call it money. Having enough money to walk into your boss's office at any given moment, drop those words and then walk out. A ton of freedom in that. You still need a job, but you don't need that job. I'd take 100% chance of having that over a 50% chance of nothing. Story 31, I would take the 50/50ths for these reasons. $1 million would be amazing, to be clear. This could clear all my household debt, eliminate mortgage, and provide large base to invest for retirement. Yes, guaranteed this would help me out major. But I am not going to be hurt if I don't get it. The 50/50ths will allow me to make large impacts in other people's lives. That is world-changing funding for so many people. This can build change and make change. Clean water for northern populations, fund new developments at schools, open programs up, building community centers, medical clinics with practitioners too. Again, not going to be hurt if I don't get $1 billion, but would I put that money where my mouth is? You better believe I would. Story 32, the million. I'd own my house outright and be more or less set for retirement, which means my salary leaves money for more fun stuff than I can really appreciate anyway. I like my job, and my work has a substantial impact on human well-being, so I'd probably rather work for another 10, 20 years than spend that time plowing CO2 into the atmosphere with my private jet and jacuzzi full of Pomerol 2006 anyway. Purpose to life, etc. Honestly, $1 billion seems like more trouble than it's worth. It's easily 50x more money than I'd need to meet every financial and pleasure goal I can imagine without just chasing diminishing returns. Given $1 billion, I'd just give 95% of it away. Story 33. I'd take the guaranteed million because it would be enough to make my life substantially more comfortable immediately and for the foreseeable future. Debts paid off, buy a house in cash, set aside a couple $100,000 for a rainy day, and then carry on with life as usual, but now with far fewer worries, stresses. The 50/50th shot would be great if you actually got the $1 billion, of course, but it would be psychologically devastating to me if I walked away empty-handed. It would be worse than never getting the offer at all, like winning the Powerball jackpot, and then the ticket gets lost. If I were already pretty financially comfortable, though, and had a house and no debt and money in the bank, I'd take the 50/50th offer because why not? Worst case scenario, I'm still fine, and missing out on the guaranteed million wouldn't be a big deal. A story 34. With $1 million, I'm quietly paying off my house, setting up some education funds for my kids, and then investing the rest, which would at best be about half of it. My life is significantly better off without having to tell a soul, beyond my wife. I can get as starry-eyed at $1 billion as the next person, but I'm taking the sure thing and telling myself that $1 billion would upend my life in irreversible ways. Many good, but many bad. Story 35. $1 million for sure. I could do a lot with $1 million. It would vastly improve my life and my family's and friends. Now, if I took the gamble and lost, it would suck, and if I took the gamble and won, it would also suck. but for different reasons. It's, in my opinion, unethical to have $1 billion, and I'd lose my hair trying to find the appropriate ways to disperse it. Story 36. I'm really surprised at how many people would choose the $1 million. I get taking a $1 million guarantee over a 50/50th shot at $2 million, even though the expected outcome is the same. I even get taking $1 million over a chance at $3 million or $5 million. Mathematicians struggle with this because they see the expected outcome as higher on the coin flip. So logically, people should choose that. Of course, what's missing from that analysis is that $2 million is, for most people, not twice as good as $1 million. Both represent life-changing money. If you don't have a car, having a car worth $80,000 is not twice as good as having a $40,000 car. There's a limit as wealth goes up. The comparative advantage of more wealth decreases. But $1 billion is staggeringly more than $1 million or $5 million. I don't need $1 billion, but there is a lot of good I could do with it if I had it. Build a hospital. Fund a conservation effort for an endangered species. Buy a better class of Supreme Court justice. JK, sort of. I'm not a millionaire, but I'm doing well enough that $1 million doesn't move the needle dramatically. $1 billion does. Story 37. Would you take a guaranteed $1 over a 50% chance at $1,000? It's an easy choice for me. Go big for the billion or go home. $1 million would let me retire maybe 10 years earlier when I'm almost 60. $1 billion I could retire now in my 20s and use the money to do almost anything in the world. Sure, there might be some regret, but paying off my house, student loan debt, and putting a few $100,000 in investments for an early retirement of 50 would leave me wondering what if on the billion and drive me mad eventually still having to work. Story 38. Easy million. I genuinely do not want $1 billion. $1 billion comes with a huge level of lifestyle change that I don't want. Billionaires can't trust anyone. Everyone they meet wants something from them. Billionaires have a real reason to worry about their safety. An average person living in a decent neighborhood has a basically zero chance of being attacked in their home. A billionaire? That chance goes way higher. There's just more to gain by attacking them, so they have to employ private security. They have to worry about people kidnapping their kids for ransom. Billionaires can't live in normal neighborhoods. They have to live in private gated communities, surrounded by other very rich people. I would have nothing in common with these people. Our lives are just too different. You also won't be able to maintain your current friendships. The wealth gap is just too extreme. Nothing about the reality of being a billionaire appeals to me other than not having to work. The easy million gives me everything I need. It makes my life easy enough. I could take more time off work and would have enough wealth that I could help my kids buy a home when they are older. It would not change my life in a huge way. I would keep my current home and friends. I'd just take a few extra vacations. Story 39. $1 million guaranteed. No contest. $1 million is more than I would need to live comfortably for the rest of my life. So if I actually got the $1 billion, I would then have to spend an awful lot of my free time finding ways to give the vast majority of it away to places where it would actually do some real good. Also, while a 50% chance at $1 billion is statistically worth $500 million, that's only on average across many such chances, and in the real world in a one-off situation, that might as well be a 100% chance to get nothing. Story 40. Only $1 million? Yeah, I'm taking 50/50ths to never worry about money again. If I lose, I'm still working just like I would with a milli. The only difference is that $1 million I pass on secures my retirement makes, having my bills paid stress-free and paying cash on a decent house and still having 600 KA left for investments. Story 41. I'd take the milli. The chances $1 billion isn't even a real number. I'm taking care of my teenage sister, putting her through her last year of high school. It's a lot of work. I need a second job to make life comfortable. A guaranteed $1 million? Whoa, the way our lives would change. I could get a vehicle, I could buy a house and leave her with my apartment when she's 18. I could learn to cool good meals without worrying it up and wasting time, food, and money. Story 42. There reaches a certain point in having money that having more of it changes nothing. Think about if you've lost 20% of everything that you own right now. Now, if you had $1 billion and lost 20%, that would be $200 million, but you'd still have $800 million. Honestly, what really changed for you? You've got $300,000 in your retirement and all your savings and your assets, and lose 20% of that. That is potentially a year or two's worth of salary that just vanished. Story 43. One option is a guaranteed $1 million, and the other option is maybe nothing. I will take the $1 million. It would completely change my life. I wouldn't be able to retire, but I could pay off all debt, have enough to give my kids the opportunity to pursue whatever career path they desire, and invest the rest in something safe like an REIT or index fund that would enable me to retire in 10, 15 years. Story 44. I would just do the million, even though I'm comfortable. I think getting $1 billion would blow up my life in ways I don't want, but $1 million would make me super extra comfortable, and I would probably keep working and just retire very early. I'm in my mid-20s, so that million now will be a lot by the time I'm 45. Story 45. I'd rather take the million now. I can pay off all debts, open separate college accounts for all my children, buy a house outright no loan, buy a work car and family SUV outright, and put back the rest for vacations or to cushion off if I get a work week when I'm sick and might get behind on bills. Story 46. I work for a big Wall Street firm, and when I was just entering the business decades back during an interview, a different firm asked me a very similar question, but the amounts and odds, were different. But at this point, $1 million in my pocket for sure. Story 47. In general, the correct answer is to take the $1 million. It can change almost anyone's life overnight, though it helps that you invest the money wisely, but if you do, it will work out in the long run. Going for the billion is too greedy for too many, as stated above. It sounds great, but in short, the million is sufficient to change anyone's life on this planet. Story 48. Oof, tough choice. My thinking is that I should go 50-50ths, given that I could achieve the $1 million in liquid assets within the next several years. But $1 billion is a number I don't think I could achieve over a lifetime. Additionally, an instant million wouldn't really change my life dramatically. 95% of it would be deployed into long-term investing. On the other hand, taking the million instantly gives me a sigh of relief, as it is a substantial milestone. And reaching this milestone, the sooner the better, as if you invest and let it compound over the next year, few decades you could retire early, etc. Gonna go with the 50-50ths? Story 49. Everyone who's going for the 50-50, go ask your phone assistant to flip a coin for you. If it's tails, you just walked out with nothing. Now tell me if you're still interested in the million, unless you can sell shares. Make 10 shares. Sell each share for $1 million, and if you win, each person who has a share gets 100 million. Keep 5 shares for yourself. 5 mil guaranteed, and a cool $500 million if you win. You'll get some rich people who can risk $1 million on a whim. Story 50. I would take the guaranteed million. I'm financially disciplined enough to put it aside and invest it and turn it into something bigger. Also, I feel like no one bats an eye at $1 million anymore like they would $1 billion, so I would fly under the radar. Story 51. People with $1 million are generally more likely to be happy than your average person. People with $1 billion are not happy people. The stress and social isolation that comes with $1 billion isn't worth it. I wouldn't take $1 billion, as it was guaranteed, and anyone taking it is making a bad decision. I don't care if you donate 99% of it, doesn't matter. Give me the $1 million and I'll be living the dream. Story 52, I'd take the guaranteed million. Consult a financial advisor and invest it in something that can give a decent return through a year or quarterly. Keep it rolling over, unless something happens job-wise, and I would need that as my income. Once it gets to a certain point, and the return is in the 6 figures and consistent, think about retirement off of that as my income. If I can get a yearly 5% return off $1 million, that's $50K/YR before taxes if I were to use that as income. Now imagine the compounding interest over the years if I left it alone. Story 53. Definitely the million. My debts would all be paid, I'd have a significant savings account, my quality of life would improve dramatically because of the reduced amount of stress. I don't need $1 billion. I just need enough to keep working and living without crap like student loans hanging over my head every day. Story 54. I hit my 50s, have learned a bit about living in debt. I would take the million. It would clear all my debt and literally solve all my problems. I don't need to be a billionaire when I can absolutely be a happy-go-lucky person if I just didn't have any debt. It's a question of what you need versus just wanting more. Story 55. I'll take the million because that will pay off all my debts and leave plenty left over, including my basic humanity. It's almost impossible to have $1 billion and still be a real person with a soul. Very few people pull it off competently. The rest are miserable and always trying to get more so they can out-billionaire all the other billionaires. It's the worst kind of hedonic treadmill to be on. Story 56 kind of just boils down to, is the risk worth it? If you can live now, then you might as well take the risk. If you're desperate for cash, then you might just need the million. $1 billion is so much more than $1 million, you better be basically homeless to not take the chance. $1 million is life-changing and will help you for sure. But $1 billion could set up all my family for generations to come if I do it right. Story 57. I'll take the guaranteed million. I could invest some of it into stocks and bonds, and eventually get even more money than the billion would offer. Even if that fails, I could still have plenty to donate to charity, invest in my career, and pay income taxes. Plus, what would I even need a billion outright for? That's too much temptation to blow it all and end up worse off than before. Story 58. Will $1 million make you happy? Take it. Otherwise, take the bet. Philosophically, if you live your life by taking the higher expected value, you'll be financially sound but not necessarily happy. You'll see how marketing, emotions, our passions and patience, or lack thereof, can lead to bad financial decisions in exchange for joy and happiness. Here are some examples. Should you buy a daily Starbucks, get a Keurig, or a Mr. Coffee? The Mr. Coffee is roughly 5x cheaper than the $5 Starbucks drip and 2x cheaper than Keurig, but it is your expected value over your whole career, highest as a lawyer, doctor, software engineer, CEO, sports athlete, working in a grocery store, becoming a middle manager, working for the local government, working for the federal government, etc.? This is a great question to ask kids and young adults. The answer requires chaining conditional probabilities. How hard is it to get into X profession times how hard it is to get Y salary times how hard it is to continue making that amount, and so on. It may surprise you, but the answer is almost overwhelmingly become a doctor. Medicine is one of the few six-figure-plus careers where the barriers to entry are front-loaded and job security is nearly guaranteed. It's hard to get into med school, 42% admission rate, but 95% of people who get in eventually graduate. To put it into perspective, physicians make about as much as CEOs over their lifetime, table 10 on this link, but there are roughly 300x more physicians than CEOs in the USA. Of course, a physician's life is far from easy. Having the highest expected value is not enough to choose it as a career. Most physicians choose it either for the pride in the profession and a desire to help others alongside the finances. Should you buy a X versus Y? iPhone versus Android, Land Rover versus Land Cruiser, designer shirt versus Costco? I grew up thinking initial cost was all that matters. This is far from the truth. The reality is that resale value is often a better indicator of a new product's true expected value. Android phones have terrible resale value when compared to iPhones. A new Land Rover is a terrible choice compared to a Land Cruiser, and Costco clothes are quite a good deal, but may indicate you're ready for end of life. Story 59. $1 million easy. It would be enough to 1. Pay off all my debt. 2. Buy a nice house in my area. 3. Put $50K in savings for emergencies. And 4. Invest the rest to make sure I'll always have money. I would keep my current job, and with no living expenses other than insurance and taxes, I could just keep padding my savings. For the average American, there is no reason to bet on the billion. Story 60 million cash in hand PLs, assuming it's tax-free like Canadian lottery winnings. Am essentially debt-free, so can take a sweet trip and probably ball out on material items, clothes, etc. to the tune of $10, $15K. Probably add $100 or more to the approx $100K I've saved for a home down payment. Whatever would make the mortgage payments manageable, as the rate-cutting cycle is meant to start, and still invest a solid wad at a young age that will see my net worth at 10+ million by retirement age. I like my work, would be listless at 31 with $1 billion. Have never been interested in anything beyond financial freedom and security. $1 million deployed semi-judiciously should cover that nicely. Story 61. I try not to carry regret in life, but one thing I have a hard time with is that I did fumble a large amount of money many years ago that would have set me up comfortably for life otherwise. Even where I'm doing fine today, the what-ifs still gnaw at me sometimes. So knowing that, I'd pick the $1 million guaranteed because I would simply not be able to deal with getting the wrong 50. More generally, though, if you prompted something like, do you want something good now or 50/50th chance of something better, without knowing what either of those things were, I think I'd go with the 50/50ths. Story 62. I've lost an absurd number of 50/50th chances in my life. Pretty sure I have a win record of like 20%. When we were kids, my parents had to tell my younger brother of 4 years to stop doing coin flips with me, because our record was like around 157 wins him, and I only won around 34 times. I started getting irate and they were worried. The other day I went to a Pokemon tournament and lost the first dice roll of a match 7 times in a row, guessing heads, even, or tails, odd each time. At which point before leaving the store, they had a D20 promotion for random items, so I rolled it and got a 1. Not 50/50th, but it was like rubbing salt in a wound. 2 weeks ago, my brother told me to pick either chicken or beef for dinner, as he wanted to eat the same thing as me. So of course we both got food poisoning from what I chose. Moral of the story, I take the million and I avoid casinos. Story 63, $1 million guaranteed every time. Despite people saying $1 million isn't a lot of money these days, $1 million is still a ton of money and more than most people will ever have all at once in their lifetime. I would pay off any debt I have and invest all the rest in dividend stocks. I'm not a big spender, so as long as I just live low-key, then I could absolutely live off the dividends forever, as long as they're being paid out. I'm not going to risk that with a 50/50th chance. Story 64. I'm way closer to poverty than being a millionaire. Hell, I'm way closer to being penniless than having even a fraction of $1 million if I sold all of my possessions at the prices I paid for them. I'll take the guaranteed million. It'll set me up easily and secure my future for a good long while. Story 65. Guaranteed million for sure. I could just pay cash on a house, get a new car, and have the money left to do any work on the house I want, furnish it, and will still have money left over. Then my current savings that was originally for a down payment can just pad my investments for retirement. It's not going to allow me to stop working, but it would put me in such a massively better place that I'd rather take the sure thing than a gamble. Story 66. $1 mil, easily. This kind of question floats around often. The best way someone has asked it has been, you can take a free $10 mil or risk it for a 99% chance at $100 mil. Would you do it? You're almost guaranteed the $100 mil in this instance, but that 1% chance that you do lose out. It leads to, basically, finding out exactly how much money a person is not willing to risk on a near guarantee. I think my personal number at the time, and still is somewhere around $5 mil. For a 50/50th shot at 1,000x, I think my number is somewhere between $500K and $1 mil. Story 67. I can live the same life I could with the million that I would with the billion, just less extravagant. I could also just invest the million and end up with a few more million, and at that point, I wouldn't even need more money, like 5 mil tops to just do whatever for the rest of my life, no. Story 68 million, toss it in a high C, and I think it'll give me like 40K a year. That's already double my income currently. I make like $400 per week at my job, $450 on a good week. 40K a year is about $770 per week. I can either keep working and use the extra 40K a year for upgrades like car repairs or home improvements, or not touch it as long as possible and let it snowball. While $1 billion would be nice, I'd rather take the guaranteed chance at improving my life. With $1 billion, I'd have to give up working entirely to find things to spend money on. I'm not the type to buy sports cars or go to 5-star restaurants, but I would like to share the wealth with friends and family. Story 69. Thanks to trickle-down economics, $1 million won't really guarantee a future for anyone, so it doesn't move the needle enough to make a difference. $1 billion, and I could really do some good for more than just myself. It therefore doesn't feel morally right to not gamble. Story 70. The only choice is the 50/50ths for $1 billion. If you think $1 million will change your life forever, you don't have enough financial sense to make this a reality. Ultimately, $1 million doesn't change your life. Now $1 billion that will. And it is 1,000 million, so you always take those odds. You will never find better odds in your life. Story 71 and 50/50ths for $1 billion. I sheet play the lotto and raising it from 0.0000001% to 50/50ths is better odds. Most mathematicians and statistics say to only play the lotto when the outcome is better than the $1 risk over the probability. Usually that means over $1 billion jackpot when you do the lump sum. Probability depending on the range for the lotto balls of C. No balls, just 50/50ths legit with no risk is statistically a better choice. I can get to $1 million within my lifetime. My parents aren't rich, but we come from a smart enough line and hard work to a fault. I'd rather retire my family rather than just myself if I win. Story 72 and 50/50ths at $1 billion. $1 million split between me, Uncle Same, and my GF is about $300K for me. That means my family will expect that I spend the $1 million on them instead of having a mutually reciprocal relationship that I've spent years equilibrating. Essentially, I'll have to go to work tomorrow and will likely piss off a bunch of family and friends who I can't really help out. With $1 billion, I'll put it in a stupidly safe interest account and live off the 5% like a maniacal rock star. Story 73. I must be crazy considering the top-rated comments. I'm not wealthy by any means. Still paying off credit cards and just trying to get by, but I'd take the $1 million. I think the path to great wealth includes the journey, and it's just not worth the risk to feel like a fool. I don't need a lot to live happy. Story 74. Hard disagree to people saying that you should only go for the $1 mil if you're broke. We're comfortable and on track with good retirement savings. $1 mil is still life-changing money. We could pay off our mortgage, renovate our house, set aside a few years of expenses, and still have hundreds of thousands left to throw into our investments to guarantee early retirement. 50/50ths only make sense if you're already rich, not just comfortable. Story 75. The subjective value of that first million is at least an order of magnitude higher than any of the other millions after that. Raw numbers aside, you're asking if I'd like a guaranteed 80% life satisfaction or a 50/50th shot at 98% life satisfaction. I'll take the guaranteed shot. Story 76. $1 million is more than enough money for me to live comfortably for the rest of my life, including fulfilling my travel wishes, luxury restaurants, buying fancy stuff, and giving whatever's left for humanitarian causes. Why would I want more? Story 77, take the $1 million. I can take that, buy a house with the $200K, set up long-term savings and stock options. With the other $800K, cash out a living wage off the interest. Why would I turn down guaranteed financial stability for the rest of my life for the chance of more cash than I'd reasonably know what to do with? Story 78, I'll roll the dice on the $1 billion. $1 million is incredible, but it's also nowhere near as much as it used to be. It would change my life in some ways, but it's not building otherwise unattainable wealth. $1 million doesn't set me up for life. It doesn't allow me to indiscriminately go on GoFundMe and pay off a dog's life-saving surgery. It doesn't allow me to forget about having to earn a living and enjoy my interests, or let my wife and I retire. I'll take the $1 million if someone's just handing it out. But if I have a 50% chance of improving the life of all my closest people, then I'm going to go for it. Story 79. $1 million sadly isn't life-changing in any high cost-of-living area. It's a good start to paying off your home mortgage. Hardworking people earn $1 million+ over their work career. A 50% chance at $1 billion. That's world-changing, and multi-generational changing, and endowment creating, and legacy building. I'll take that chance. Story 80. At the moment, since I'm a student, the $1 million, so I don't have to worry about tuition anymore. So all my future salary can go towards buying a house and going on vacations instead of student debt. If I was already in my desired career, physician ID, take the 50/50th BC, I'd be okay with just a chance, and $1 million isn't a huge amount for a doctor, before taxes or high cost of living, I mean. Story 81. The $1 million guaranteed. That's completely life-changing. I would be an idiot to give that away for the chance for extra money. There's nothing I need $1 billion for that the $1 million won't do. I also have horrible luck. It's been the worst year of my life, and I told myself, oh, it can't any worse, and then it did. So I'm taking no chances, LOL. I'd probably get robbed after getting the $1 million. Story 82. Looking at thus statistically, the value of a guaranteed $1 million is $1 million. The value of 50% chance at $1 billion is 0, 1 billion plus 11 billion, 2 = $500 million. So the value offered by first bet is 1 million, and the value of the second bet is 500 million. Mathematically, this should be a no-brainer second option. It is difficult for humans to still select the second over the first, is because we perceive losses more than profits, meaning we feel more sad when we lose $10 versus happy when we get a free $10 bill. I would take the second option. Story 83. A bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. Give me something that I know will be mine and will drastically improve my family's current situation rather than risk it all and potentially end up with nothing. If I ended up with nothing, it might be the last straw in this life. I'd feel like a fool, and I don't think I could ever recover. Story, $84 million, no question. It may not stretch as far as some might think, but it would be more than enough to take care of the things I need to take care of, and then some. I could make sure my mom has a place to live comfortably. I could go to school without having to also work multiple jobs, and it would definitely help me build my credit back up. If I took the chance at $1 billion and lost, I'm not sure I could live with that mistake, lol. Story, $85 million. That's all my bills paid off, a house bought, and still several hundred grand in the bank. I make decent enough money as it is, but not paying rent or a mortgage and only paying property tax and upkeep is a lot less than usual living expenses. I could live quite comfortably with that kind of cash infusion. Story 86. Definitely not taking the 50/50ths. Realistically, I don't need $1 billion, and I would be too scared of losing and ending up with nothing. Having $1 billion would be sick, but kind of scary TBH, and $1 million would be just as life-changing and good enough for me. Story 87. I have to take the guaranteed $1 million. I don't know what I would do with $1 billion. $1 million, I'd buy my house in cash and take the rest to invest for my retirement. Significantly less stressed about my finances for my whole life without having a mortgage to pay and a retirement to plan out too much. Story 88. $1 billion is straight up world-changing money, not even just life-changing money. Your entire world becomes new. $1 million would make my life a bit easier, retire earlier, etc. But it's not so much that all your financial worries go away. I mean, shoot, After taxes, $1 million basically only buys you a mid-range house in a mid-range neighborhood in a non-expensive cost of living state. Go for the Billy. Story 89. I'd have a game plan for spending $1 million because, frankly, after the down payment on a decent house and a few vacations, the rest would go in investments for like 30 years. The work in figuring out $1 billion, including setting up a massive giving it all away in the next 2 years scheme, would take up so much of my life that it hardly seems worth it. Story 90. I'd choose a guaranteed $1 million. It's a life-changing amount with no risk. With a 50/50th chance, you could lose everything and end up with nothing. It's better to take a sure opportunity and invest wisely than gamble on uncertainty.